When people talk about cultural differences, there's so many. It's really hard to pinpoint. I mean, we could have a discussion for hours about the cultural differences between a country like China and America. And it's something I've given a lot of thought about since I've been here. And over time, what has really come to me when I'm looking at this is a difference in what I like to refer to as time preferences, meaning China operates with what I refer to as a low time preference mentality, whereas the United States operates with a high time preference mentality. And again, it's not as though one is right or wrong, it's just different. And what exactly do I mean by these time preferences? China operates, from what I have witnessed, with the concept of looking much longer term in terms of the aims and the objectives and how it is, not just the government, if you will, and policy, but also households, how they think about their objectives over time. The United States, on the other hand, is much more immediate, somewhat of an instant gratification concept. So if you think about it, China is much more of a, broadly speaking, investment culture, whereas the United States is much more of a consumption culture. And when I look back and through the various trips back and forth to the United States and my time here in China, you can see developments such as, let's say, the Chinese railway system. When I first got here back in the mid 1990s, China had your basic old kind of railroads, and today you have high-speed rail that will take you to virtually anywhere within a couple of hours. The United States, unfortunately, has spent the better part of the last 4 decades since the 1980s far more focused on consumption, and again, both from a government perspective as well as a household perspective, where the example that I give, I think that maybe best personifies this is, here in Shanghai, when I arrived, there was one subway line, that was it. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe there are now 16, 17, maybe even 18 subway lines crisscrossing the entirety of the city over a 30-year period. Meanwhile, a lot of the infrastructure in the United States, particularly a lot of the airports, but even the subway systems in places like New York and what have you, are clearly in need of being refurbished, brought up to a much more modern standard. But again, that high versus low time preference mentality makes it a big challenge. And when you take this idea of time preference, the difference in time preference, it's easier to then look at all of the other cultural differences that exist within the Chinese society and the American society when you're an American or any foreigner for that matter coming to China and looking to operate. You can think about it from the standpoint of how you negotiate with the Chinese, let's say. An American will come in and say, well, let's sit down, let's hammer out some sort of term sheet, we can get it done in a couple days. And the Chinese are thinking, yeah, we could, or perhaps it might be better, if we just take our time and maybe we have one meeting where we just sit down and have dinner, we get to know one another. This could be a bit of a frustration, if you will, for an American businessman. But again, everything sort of comes back to the higher end ideals of time preference. So the real, for me, question moving forward is how to be able to demonstrate and communicate this very, very important difference to my American compatriots, because it is quite critical in this point in time where we are having much more engagement, not necessarily positive engagement, but China and America to a certain extent are trying to get back together, relearn who they are as countries, leaders, trade war, whatever the case might be. China, I feel, has a pretty solid understanding of this high time preference mentality that America operates under. The Americans, I have found, they are beginning to better understand the longer term time preferences that China operates as a model for growth And I'll just finish by saying, again, it's not just government, it's also households. We can see that, there's a lot of organizations or people that are commenting on China saying the Chinese need to consume more. Okay, maybe. Again, not culturally aligned, but at the same time, maybe that's a good idea for the Americans to invest more. So this is an area where I think both countries can genuinely learn from each other based upon this very, as the question was asked, distinctive, fundamental cultural difference between these two critical nations.